In this video, we want to take a look at the field special options, specifically the most commonly used ones. If we go back to the contact person box and to the variable first name, when I click on it here, you can already see them at the top. These are the most commonly used field special options. Let's take a look at them. For example, one of them is the required field option. I can activate this function the moment I define the first name variable as a required field. Can I also show this in the front end? Let me show you briefly. If the customer now doesn't fill in the first name and tries to generate a preview, they would get an error message here telling them that they need to fill in the required field first name. The error message, that's our standard error message. Of course, you can also set up a custom error message in the backend if you want something different. Let's continue with the functions, example text, placeholder text, and default text. Let's go through all three. The example text, as it says, appears below the input field. This is a required field. I'll type it in and show you directly on the front end what effect it has. This allows me to write something below the field and help the customer when they're entering information. There's also a little trick, so to speak. If you put a question mark in front here, before the text, it no longer appears below the input field, but instead as a mouse over tooltip in the field as a little question mark. Then we have the placeholder and the default text. I'd like to show both of them. With the default text, let's do this. For the first name, we'll enter Max. With the default text, if I cancel the design here again, I can initially write a value into this field. You can already see at that moment I can also generate a preview. I've basically bypassed the required field because I've already entered something. It's also the case that if I click in here now, the value is actually there. So if the customer wanted to change the first name now, they would have to delete this value or these letters in order to type something new. That's why we came up with the placeholder text function. I'll switch that now. I'll enter that now as placeholder text. Again, let's cancel the design here. We'll reload the whole thing again. Now you can already see the word is there again, but this time it's displayed as a placeholder. If I click in, you can see that I can type right away. And if I want to generate the preview, you can also see that I still have to fill in the required field. So basically, it's the same as the default text, except that it doesn't actually appear as a value in the field and it doesn't override the required field validation. Next, let's take a look at the special field option heading. I also find this very useful, so let's take a look. Now here above the first name, I'll write contact person. Save. Right, before it looked like this here. I think with the heading function, you can nicely create small sections. For the person entering the data, it makes things a bit easier step by step, I think. Now I would just, for example, also for the company, we also have a heading address data. Exactly, you always set the heading on the variable where you activate this function. The heading then appears above it, above the phone number. We also have a heading contact details. This way, we've divided the input fields in the front end into 3 different categories.